Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everybody. It is now 11 o'clock, and we are here to worship in spirit and in truth. We are here to worship in spirit and in truth, and it is our Youth Sunday, amen. Our Youth Sunday, amen. Amen. We all remember when we were a youth, amen. So we're going to highlight three of our wonderful youth. They're going to give us our scripture and our prayer and then also our song, amen. Deacon Brown is the deacon of the week. In his absence, you have several other deacons standing in the gap, amen. If you have a question or concern or issue, none of us have passed mind reading class. You need to let us know that there is a question or a concern so that we can be there to serve you, amen. Amen. We welcome you to our 11 o'clock worship in spirits and then also to our devotion. We'll start off with our scripture.
Today's scripture will be coming from Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Please bow your heads and close your eyes. Dear Lord Jesus, we thank you for this day. Dear Lord Jesus, help those people who are homeless to get a shelter and give them up better. Keep your hands upon us when we're going home or the people on the way here. Keep your eye upon us when we're sleeping, Lord. Make sure no harms or nightmares come towards these children and just make sure we're all okay. And amen.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All up in my house, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, all up in my house, I'm gonna let it shine. All up. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All up. I'm gonna let it shine. All up in my. I'm gonna let it shine. All up in my home. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
That concludes our devotion on this morning. I now turn you over to our pulpit.
Man, let's give our babies another hand. It's a little hard to get up here and talk and sing as well. So let's give them a hand today. Amen. All up in my home, I'm going to let it shine. Amen, amen. It is a responsive reading time. Can you please stand and give reverence to the Word of God? Our responsive reading is in your program, and it is coming from Philippians, the first chapter, the 12th through the 18th verse. And it's called The Obligation of Christians. And we're going to read simultaneously. But I want you to know, brethren, that the things which happened to me have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel. And most of the brethren in the Lord, having become confident by my chains, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. The former preached Christ from selfish ambition, not sincerely, supposed to add affliction to my chains. Altogether, what then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached, and in this I rejoice. Yes, I will rejoice. And the word of God is blessed. You may have your seat.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord. The song says, you are good all the time, and all the time you are good. Hallelujah. It's now time for us to join together as a church family and come to the altar. The Bible tells us to cast our cares onto Him. He is our comforter. He is our provider. He will make a way when you can't see a way. Let us bow our heads, close our eyes. Father God, we thank you. We thank you for who you are, Lord God. We thank you for all the things that you have done for us in our lives, Lord God. We thank you for the blessings that we can't even begin to count, Lord. We give all the praise to you, oh Father. We thank you for your son, Jesus, that you sent to die for our sins, Lord God, that knowing that we can't be justified on our own account, Lord God, but because of the blood of Christ, that we can plead. And in the end, Lord God, we'll be able to dine with you in heaven. Father God, we ask you that you can watch over our people, Lord God. The people that you see standing before you, Lord God, that came to loosen a burden that's on them, to lift the weight off their shoulder, Lord God. I don't know what they're standing in the need of, but God, bless me that I can intercede on their behalf, Lord God, that you will hear them and restore them, Lord God, better than they ever have before, Lord God. Any sickness, any pain, we rebuke it right now in the name of Jesus, Lord God. God, you can do all things, Lord God. You can work our finances. You can make a way out of no way, oh God. When we don't know, we just need to give it to you, Lord. Give it to you, Lord God, and watch you make a way. Father God, there may be someone that's just worried. Their relationship, Lord God, their marriage, their friendship, Lord God. Maybe they're standing in the gap for a friend, Lord God. We ask that you lift them up and give them strength and give them the words, Lord God. Send your Holy Spirit to speak to their heart, Lord God, that they know what to say for those that are around them and those that need to mend relationships, Lord God. Lord, some of us are bound today, oh God. Some of us are bound today, oh God. We got chains that you have freed us from. For some reason, we want to keep those chains locked on us, God. We ask that you loose those chains right now in the name of Jesus. We declare and decree freedom right now in the name of Jesus, we pray. God, your promises are yea and amen. You have to do it, Lord. For we petition it to you through your son, Jesus. Oh God, we ask that you lift this church up, Lord God, as it continues to grow, Lord God. Bless the ministers, bless the pastor of the church, Lord God. Strengthen him, Lord God, when it's in these weary times, Lord God. We know that this job is a thankless job. We know that it's hard. But God, you have sent the one that can carry that burden, Lord God, and still feed your sheep. Oh God, we just ask that you look around, at everyone here, Lord God. Look at their hearts, Lord God. Look at their hearts, because you're the only one that can see it, thus says the Lord. Lord, you have to mend those hearts, Lord God. You have to mend those hearts, Lord, that we can serve you, that we can worship you, oh God, in spirit and in truth. And the emphasis on truth, Lord God. For the outside is going to perish, but their heart is going over yonder, Lord God, because it contains your spirit. Lord, look over us, Lord. Touch our minds, Lord God. You said that we have to be changed by the renewing of our minds, Lord God. But apart from you, we can do nothing, Lord God. Apart from you, we can do nothing. So we ask that you touch our minds and our hearts, Lord God. Bind them together and cleanse them, Lord God. Clean us up, Lord God. Clean us up, Lord God, so the good that the outside you see is also on the inside, Lord God, that we can dine in heaven with you, oh God. God, just forgive us of our sins and our iniquities and anything that we don't know that we're doing, Lord God. We just ask that you look over us, Lord God, and remember it no more. Throw it into the sea of forgiveness. God, we're not perfect, but we're striving to be like you every day, Lord God. And without your strength, without your encouragement, without your word, without your preachers, Lord God, without everything, the tools that you have given us, Lord God, we can't make it. So we plead to you, oh God, to give that to us. Remind us, Lord God, of whose child we are. And that's the child of the Most High. And all these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
At this time, we're going to continue to worship as we prepare our hearts to give. Give back a portion of what God has blessed you with. At this time, we're going to ask the ushers and the deacons to come forward. Father, we thank you for blessing us to be able to give into your kingdom. We ask, God, that you would bless this offering, bless those who had to give and those who had not to give, God. Bless them too, God, that they will be able to participate in the giving of and the uplifting of the kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Good morning, church. Good morning. At this time, we'd like to acknowledge our guests. If you can stand and tell us something, tell us a little something about yourself, and remain standing. We have greeters that have a special gift for you because you are special. Do we have any guests?
Miss DeWitt from Augusta, Georgia.
Amen. 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 No others? Well, we have a saying in True Spirit. True Spirit. Amen. We have 3 announcements. The ones that have the announcement, could you please come forward, please?
Good morning. This Saturday, I'm here to remind you of our Fall Festival on October 19th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. There will be food, games, vendors, and hay rides, treasure in the trunk crafts, Christian music, and even entertainment. Sponsored by One Jump Ahead. These jumpers will be jumping every 45 minutes. Please come out and help support this youth fundraiser. For those who signed up to help, please stop by the table to get a reminder of the time you signed up to help. Also, please donate a bag or 2 of candy to support the treasure in the trunk. Thank you for your support, and God bless you all. Amen.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everybody. All right, True Spirit. I am up here. It is the month of October, which is the National Pastor Appreciation. We want to bless the man of our house, True Spirit, our pastor, Reverend Anthony L. Greer, that he was God sent. No gift is too small or too big. Whether it's just an email, a handshake, a gift card, we just want to let him know that we love him at True Spirit. Amen? Amen, church. God bless you.
Good morning, True Spirit. Good morning, True Spirit. On that same note, I come to you with an announcement for our pastor's anniversary. Coming up in November, we are going to be celebrating our pastor's anniversary, his first anniversary right here at True Spirit. I don't think y'all got excited enough for that. I said that it is our pastor's first anniversary. We have been blessed with this man here, and we want to celebrate him. So on November 17th, we are going to come down to right here, True Spirit, and we're going to celebrate him both at our 11 o'clock service and at the 3:30 p.m. service. At the same time, we're also going to have a dinner because, we got to have a dinner, do we? So I expect to see all of y'all, and I expect to see all these seats full, because we want to come out and really celebrate this man. At the same time, our anniversary committee is asking for each member to give at least $100 or what you can give for this anniversary. All right? Amen? Amen? Amen. Amen. And now at this time, I give you our announcements.
We focus on over here the announcements, please.
Good morning, True Spirit. Welcome to the second Sunday of October. It's October 13th, and my name is Janiyah. Let's get started with this week's announcements. Did you miss last week's service? You can watch services live and on demand right on our channel, TSBC Media on YouTube. Sundays are always the best when they start with our Sunday school to learn more about God's Word. Classes begin at 9:30 a.m. every Sunday. If you recently joined True Spirit, we have a class just for you, and it occurs every Sunday in the fellowship hall starting at the same time. Then, at 11 o'clock a.m., you can stick around for our Sunday worship service. Today, starting at 3:30 p.m., St. John's Baptist Church will be having our choir to sing and Pastor Greer as a guest for their church anniversary. Let's come out and show our support for this joyous event. Next Saturday, our youth ministry will be having our Fall Harvest Festival, chili cook-off, and youth fundraiser. This event will be starting at 11 o'clock a.m. There will be games and treats during the treasure in the truck. Also, we will have hay rides, inflatable football, basketball, and more. This event isn't just for the youth though. For the adults, you'll be able to enjoy some early holiday shopping with local vendors and food. Let's make sure to mark the day October 19th on our calendar to come support the youth ministry. On October 27th, we will be having our choir day. For more on this event, here's our Minister of Music, Mr. Earl Schaefer.
Hey everybody, this is Earl Schaefer. I'm your Minister of Music here at True Spirit Baptist Church, and I am super excited to invite you to our annual choir day. It's going down Sunday, October 27th, 2019 at 4 p.m. We're going to have some dinner. We're going to have choirs from all over the city come out. So I want you to tell Lottie, Dottie, and everybody, get your face in the place so we can have some praise and have some worship. We're going to have a high time in the Lord. We want everybody to come out. It's free and open to the public. Now back to you.
Thank you. November is going to be a special time around True Spirit because we will be celebrating our pastor's first anniversary. This event is set to be held on Sunday, November 17th, and the theme this year is Gem and Tafita Sheep with Honor, coming from Jeremiah 3:15. The guest pastor for this event will be Pastor Dr. Jarvis Hanson from the New Nazareth Baptist Church in Chicago, Illinois. Now, let's look at your week ahead. Have you been interested in expressing your love for God through dance? If so, you'd be perfect for one of our dance teams. Our Rocks of Ages meets on Monday starting at 6:30 p.m. and Touched by the Spirit dancers meet on Saturday starting at 11:30 a.m. right here in the sanctuary. Tuesdays are a great time to expand your teachings from Sunday school and Sunday worship. You are invited to come out to our daytime Bible study starting at 11:30 a.m. or our nighttime Bible study starting at 7 o'clock p.m. We have room for you. Are you someone that enjoys singing but haven't known where you can use this talent? I've got the answer, and it is in one of our various choirs. Choir rehearsal is held Wednesdays beginning at 7 o'clock p.m. and this week's rehearsal is for our Voices of Truth. Additionally, on this Saturday, we will have our mass choir rehearsal starting at 10 o'clock a.m. On Fridays, we help serve the community with our food pantry from 11 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. and we are always looking for more donations or volunteers. Finally, on Saturday starting at 8 o'clock a.m., we hold our intercessory prayer right here in the sanctuary. This is it for our upcoming events. Keep up with what's going on with us by searching and liking us on Facebook at True Spirit Baptist Church. Also, share us with your friends. Now, let's fellowship with each other for a few minutes and remember, God loves you, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it, even if you try. Have a blessed week.
As I think about my journey, it's amazing how you kept me. Can't always see that I was perfect, but I'm so glad you preserved me. I'm inexhaustible how you stroked me and made something beautiful. It's true, you bring out the very best in me. I'm a body of your love, and I'm never depending on you to my life. And I'll never forget it. I know it takes it to the rules through everybody, and you can anybody. Know your beauty's in me. For your love, I never thought that I was good enough. Never thought that I was smart enough. Never thought that I could measure up, but then your grace changed the game. Told me that my life is better now, the thing you now. And I spread the word that you can do it now, 'cause the one who feels the same. I'm a product of your love, and it's hard to tell. I know too much of better, everyone takes it to everybody. If you know it's beautiful, I'll say.
the saints of God said amen. Let us celebrate the Lord for who he is this morning. Come on, if he's been good to you, come on, let's worship him this morning with a celebratory praise. He's truly a loving God. We thank him for the love that he shared. Amen. 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 Today's a good day. That's why we should taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusts in him. Just a couple of announcements. As you've seen, we are guests at St. John today, but also after service, they will be feeding anyone that want to go over and fellowship. After our morning service, they will be having dinner, so you're more than welcome to go over. But service will be at 3:30. We want to celebrate with St. John as they celebrate 141 years of service. Amen. That's a good thing. Amen. So we're grateful for what God is doing there. My friend, Pastor Martin Felder, we're grateful for what God has given him for the church. Amen. Got a good praise report. I was informed today that our own minister of music will be conducting the Air Force Academy Cadet Choir. Amen. Now, I'm picking now because we know how we celebrate our own. I seen a section of the church just smile. Maybe you're not graduating, but one of ours has been acknowledged to be a part of the Fannie Mae Duncan statue unveiling. He will be over the choir. Amen. Amen. No matter what, he represents true spirit. And so we pray that God will strengthen him. It will be conducted on October the 26th at 9 a.m. So we want to be supportive in his endeavor that he has been selected to do here in Colorado. God is doing some awesome things. And we acting selfish because it ain't involving all of us. But if one of us go, it involves this whole church. Amen. Amen. So we're grateful for what he's doing. Also, we want to say, and I want to say, thank you for all those that came on Friday night as we celebrated 24 years of service and 90th birthday of Mother Sola Latour. Amen. Thank you for all those that came. I also want to say thank you for all those that gave the gift. We were above and beyond what he tried to raise. And he, Pastor Mose, told me to let you all know he really appreciated the fact that we packed the house and we gave our best. And God blessed that service. So I'm grateful for all those that followed, the choir, the nurses, the deacons, and you two ministers, and also the laymen of True Spirit. Give yourselves a hand. Amen. Also, I want to say thank you to all the preachers that came out for the Pastor's Corner on yesterday. We had a great time. True Spirit, we got some awesome preachers that have sat in class tentatively, and we learned some different ways to articulate the sermon, to find out what God wants us to say. And we just had a good time. I had a great time talking with them, hearing their concerns, and helping them like someone didn't help me. So I want to be a gift to them and help them as well. So we're grateful for them that came out on yesterday, for all those that made that event prosperous and great. I want to say thank you as well for those that played a role. I'm going to ask that Brother Miller, Sister Battle, Sister Patton, Brother Piper, Brother Eric, and Brother Marlon, please stand. Amen. Now, where's Brother Eric and Brother Marlon? I believe in recognizing people that do service. Our church has been doing a lot of repairs and some things taking place in the church. This has been our trustee committee that has been working diligently, getting things done around here. I want to say thank you, and we want to say thank you for your work and what you're doing to make our church look beautiful. Amen. 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 We're grateful for your service, and we want to say thank you. Brother Eric is still out somewhere, probably roaming the perimeter. Amen. So when you see him, say thank you. Keep up the good work. There's a few more things that's on the list that we're working on, but guess what? God is in the blessing business, and so we're grateful for all that's taking place at True Spirit. Make sure you look out on the board on the outside. It gives knowledge and information on all the announcements and programs that's going on in the community. If you have not heard it through our announcements, it is posted outside in the lobby area. I'm also asking that if you have a child or youth and you come in throughout the week, please be careful and watch what you're eating. I noticed there's a lot of excess garbage being laid around on the floors, on the pews. Now listen, we have someone that cleans the church, but it makes no sense for her to clean the church and you allow your child to mess up the church. I'm going to say that again. If you let them mess up your house, don't let them mess up this house. Amen. I've been seeing a lot of food crumbs laying around after the church has been vacuumed and cleaned. So I'm asking you, let's keep God's house in order. Keep it clean. Amen. Amen. So watch your children, throw away the garbage, and make sure that they don't leave anything laying around. Amen. Church meeting is October the 24th at 6 o'clock. So we're asking you all, please ma'am, please sir, those that are members of True Spirit to be a part of our church meeting, our quarterly meeting. I know that it was one just about a month or so ago, but we moved some times up, so we want to stay in compliance with our quarterly meetings. We want you to be a part of our various ministries here at True Spirit. There's a lot of ministries that need your help. And so here it is. To grow the village, we got to be a part of the village. And when we become a part of the village, then we can put our hands on things in the village that will strengthen the village and let people know that the village is here as a resource. So we want you to be a part of the ministries that's here at True Spirit, knowing that we receive you, we're receptive, we will not reject you, we will just teach you what you need to know and what you can do to be a part of this church. Amen? Bible study. We're discussing the revelation of John. I want to make a correction. I got tangled up into the Johns, John the Baptist and John the Beloved. Some may have heard me say that the Revelations was written by John the Baptist. It was not. It was written by John the Beloved. So I wanted to correct that, make sure no one leaves out with any miscommunication or misinformation. But there's so many things going on in the Bible that repeats itself. I got tangled up in the words and in the people, so I want you to know that. But we want you to come out as we discuss the revelation of John. We're talking about the apocalyptic and the apocalypsis of what John has received, but we've been talking about the character that which resides in John, but should reside in all servants that are children of God. Now we found out in order to be a servant, you must be willing to be a slave. Not slave to man, but slave to God and the work that he requires of us. So we've been talking about the sevenfold spirits, not the sevenfold ministry, but the spirits that should exist or reside or dwell within God's people. Now there are some things that we all working on. There are some things that we want to receive. And the only way God will deposit his spirit into us is if we're willing to be slaves unto him. God will not allow oil and water to stay in the same cup. Think about it. He didn't even allow the water and the blood to stay in his body. One side poured out water, the other side poured out blood. And there was a reason for that. So God wants us to come and learn what he wants to reveal to us so that we can be better servants in the kingdom. Amen. We are required as servants of God to slave for God. Meaning we're willing to work while it is day. Use our spiritual gifts to edify the kingdom. Where is the kingdom? The inside church. That we use our spiritual gifts to uplift those that may not feel so good about themselves. You may have a gift of smiling or hugging or shaking hands, of encouragement. But if you don't use that gift stays dormant. Now, some of the characteristics that we're fighting is the fear of the Lord. When you don't fear God, then guess what? You don't know him. You don't respect him, nor are you waiting to hear from him. God does not speak to the devil. That's why many of us are afraid to read Revelations, because it reveals some devilish ways that we need to get rid of. And the apocalyptic and apocalypsis behavior is the gift is given to one to reveal what the Holy Spirit is saying. So now, not saying that the preacher is the only one the Spirit talks to, because God speaks to all those that are willing to listen. But the question is, do you know who he is? Because if you know who he is, then you would fear him. Don't be afraid of Revelations. It's a book of praise if you know the Lord. As Paul would say, I'm a prisoner of Christ, meaning I'm willing to be locked up in the name of Jesus, because I serve a God that went down to the pits of hell and took the keys and got my life back. Right there, you just missed the shout, and I ain't even preaching. And so many of us should recognize what God is doing and be willing to understand and read Revelations. Revelations is not the end of your life, but it gives you a story of how life will end. But if you really believe in God and you really trust in God, you'll find joy in Revelations. Why? Because he said, when you're living right and you're doing what I asked you to do, when that day do come, we'll be celebrating. Worthy is the Lamb of God. That's a joyous occasion. So we want you to come out on Tuesday. Be a part of our Bible study, 11:30 and 7 o'clock. Hear what we're talking about. If you haven't gotten the Revelation of John by William Barclay, we do have copies. We're giving those out per chapter, but we encourage you to get that book so you can have it for your own library. Amen? Amen. Let's give this choir a hand as they come again, our youth, as they come again. Y'all, come on, let's give our children a hand. We have Children's Church. Amen. We have Children's Church at this time. And we ask that you would allow us to take your children in our care and teach them what thus say the Lord. Amen. Let's give them one more hand. I wish everybody ran like that to church. Amen. Our God and Father's preaching time. Songs have been sung. Gifts have been given. And Father, we need a word from you on high. God, we're asking that you would be the God that you've always been, be the giving God, and share yet some more crumbs from the Master's table. That we are just a few of your servants here, hungry, wanting to eat until we can eat no more. So let me decrease, you increase in me, hide me behind the throne. Let them see your image upon me, hear your voice through me. Lord, let this word fall on fertile soil and disrupt stony ground. So Father, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted in thy sight. Oh Lord, I praise you, give you all glory and adoration, because you're my strength and you're my redeemer. And the house of God said, amen. With your manuals of life, if you would turn with me to the Gospel of St. John, chapter 15. And as you are standing, I'm picking up on spirits that are not being conducive to worship. I don't know what's going on in your life personally, but if you came for the right reason, then you'll trust God. But most importantly, if you come to be delivered from that spirit that's holding you bondage or captive, I want to share with you, you're in the right place. But the victory you give the enemy is when you can't smile, when you can't clap your hand, or when you're looking around to see what's going on instead of paying attention to what God is saying. That's how you give the enemy victory. But the Bible says that whenever a situation takes place in your life, for the one that believe in God, trust in God, you can speak back to the enemy. And I don't know if anybody's been speaking to the Lord this week. Maybe that's why you came in feeling the way you feel. But I want you to know the devil has no room in this house on this morning. So I'm praying something is said today that will break or destroy the yoke or the chains that have you bound and held in captivity. Because last I checked the record record, he died that we all shall be made free. So therefore, no one that really believes and trusts in God should put bondage in their vocabulary. Nor should captivity be a part of your DNA. Because when you serve the God that I serve, I don't know if anybody here knows about being set free. When you serve the God that I serve, then now your spirit can flow freely. And the Bible says they that worship him, see, y'all ain't with me already. They that worship him should worship him in spirit and in truth. So lay down your financial problems. Lay down your migraine. Lay down your doctor diagnosis. Lay down the fact that you think you might be losing your job. Your wife or your husband ain't acting right. Lay it all down on the altar and trust that God will do everything but fail. If you a believer in the house, somebody ought to shout out amen. Shout out amen again. Say it one more time and believe that his word is true. St. John chapter 15. St. John chapter 15. And I had to say that because I was starting to get upset. Because we're too old to let the enemy have victory. That's all ages. If you have St. John chapter 15, say amen. If you're still looking, shout out Bible study. We got room for you. And it reads, I am the vine, the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth not fruit, he purges it. Some Bibles say prune, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can ye except ye abide in me. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. That concludes our reading for this morning. If you would this morning, help me preach on the subject and the topic, being pruned for service. Do me one favor. I don't want you to touch your neighbor. I just want you to look somewhere in the proximity of your neighbor and say, neighbor, I'm being pruned for service. I'm being pruned for service. When we hear or we think about Jesus and all that he has told us in his Bible, in the Gospels, here in John, which is considered one of the hardcore Gospels, when we hear the word productivity or being productive, we know that it resides with some power one would have of producing and creative and having a ready and abundantly fertile effort. What I want you to embrace this morning is the word fertile. Because fertile suggests that we have the capacity of being capable of producing, which means we are able because we are ready. And in order to become productive, we must become fertile to create more and fertile to even be ready. And as we take a glimpse of what life that we live, we were designed to be such as the vineyard, ready and productive. Because in the vineyard, there's one vine with many branches. And in the vineyard, there's an expectation that it should produce an abundance of flavorful fruit. Okay, the Bible says it like this. The Lord had commanded us that man and woman, when in union together, should be fruitful and multiply. Meaning that they have the mind and the heart to be fertile once unified, to come together, and they have the power and the capacity to do a very well capable thing of creating something and producing more. But my brothers and sisters, individually, we all should be ready and productive. We should be productive enough to be able to produce more than what we have. For the Bible declares that, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. The Bible also declares that you let your light so shine so that men can see your good work and glorify the Father which is in heaven. Here again, we get several commands on how we should become fertile. Fertile enough in our mind and fertile in our heart. But truth be told, we know that our minds and hearts have not been fertile. In fact, we haven't been producing anything. And we can no longer promote Father in heaven because we're too busy trying to be Father on earth. And so now the Lord is saying it's time to be pruned because I have reason to use you. But not only that, we have not become fertile enough to activate power to pray against storms in our lives or even handle the process that we must go through in order to be a productive fruit bearer. I don't know, I said it earlier, some of us have came in with a clogged up and a captivity spirit. But if you really have been in the auspice or even been touched by the hands of Jesus, nothing that you experienced this week could keep you captive and keep you from praising God, the one that kept you and sustained you through dangers seen and unseen, the one that kept food on your table, clothes on your back, activities of your limb, kept you in your right mind, kept you sane, kept you saved, kept you sanctified, kept you filled with his Holy Spirit, put food on your table, money in the bank, kept your mind stayed on him. Sinner, being fertile is where we can find just how capable we really are. Because Jesus entrusted each one of us the capabilities so much that we should be more productive than we are today. And watch this. Every Christian, young and old, should be wanting to be pruned. Reverend, why are you saying should I want to be pruned? Because if you're not going to be pruned, you can't stay beautiful. Let me say that again. If you're not willing to be pruned, you will keep that same ugly spirit that you had before you got saved. In fact, everyone should be willing to get rid of some stuff that don't make me look like I should be looking. In fact, many of us, I mentioned before, we give the devil too much credit. We give him too much victory shouts. Because watch this, many of us can say, had it not been for the pruning, I would not have made it this far. Had it not been for the pruning, I would not have still been walking safe in his care. Somebody went to see the doctor this week. And had it not been for you being pruned, you wouldn't have been able to shout before you saw the doctor. Somebody was dealing with financial problems. Had you not been able to be pruned, you would already have known God will provide. But can I get a witness that can testify, that can say, Reverend, had it not been for the pruning, I wouldn't have been in the condition I am right now. I'm a worshiper. And I know he told me that they that worship him should worship him in spirit. And he had to get some stuff off of me so I can worship him in a better perspective. So here, we look at this text as he's talking to us as being the branches individually, but having one source. But he says you have to allow the vine, who is the husbandman and the vine keeper, to do the proper things needed so that you can become productive, but you can remain fertile. Just because you go through something does not mean you will not go through something else. In fact, the devil cannot test you with nothing new, so he has to keep testing you with the past. And truth be told, some of us will make our past our current resume. And if I can just testify on that for a hot second, sometimes we have allowed our past resume to be our current character. But God said you use the resume to show the new face of where you came from. And truth be told, if the churches was really pruned the way they should be pruned, you'll be glad about your past resume, but you'll use your past to let somebody know, look what the Lord has done. Brought me out of darkness into the marvelous light. Look what the Lord has done. So as we look at this text, as Jesus gives us one of his many concepts or considerations of parables that's not sugar-coated. He tells us the first thing, when you're pruned for service, you got to go through a prep stage. Verse 1 and 2 gives us that example of the prep stage. We have to be ready for prepping period. And believers, Jesus wants us to be consistent while he is in the prepping period. He wants us to remain consistent in how much we rely on him as he's prepping us for the outcome. And listen, we should prep ourselves before we come to the house of worship. In order to produce the Holy Spirit, we have to prep our minds to be on one accord. Y'all ain't with me. Book of Acts tells us that when they all came together on one accord, then the Holy Spirit came. And can I just be honest? Some of us are so focused on prepping ourselves for Monday morning instead of prepping ourselves to be grateful for Sunday morning. Some of us are looking for the future when you should be thankful that you are in a present time with everything in you to say thank you for allowing me to be here today. And so you have to prep yourselves. And here it is. There should never be a moment in your prepping period that you're not praying and being thankful. I mean, I'm just going to put it like this. I'm struggling not just with the altitude. And I'm not saying Colorado, but I'm saying I'm struggling with the altitude in which God has some people to think that they're higher than the mountains. And the problem is, we will profess and proclaim and prophetically, unprophetically pronounce that we're seeking God for every piece of information and direction, but yet we don't act like it. And so here it is. In our prayer life, we're not thankful enough of what God has done, so now we look like we're sitting or riding on a mighty high. I believe it was Slim and the Supreme Angel said, if I'm too high, Lord, please bring me down. And can I just be honest? No one wants to ask God to bring them down, because everyone loves to be on top of the world, but don't nobody want to pray when the world is on top of them. In fact, you should be praying that God keep you where you are, but while you're going through your storms, through your prep period, that God, you won't take your hands off of me. Father, you'll make sure that I have everything I need on my job, in my house, at the school, and even in the church. Father, I'm just going to stay focused, because your word said, if I look to the hills, not look to yourself, but look to the hills, for which cometh all of my help. All of my help comes from the Lord. And so you have to be thankful in your prepping moment, that through all of my problems and misfortunes, the tests and trials, I'm grateful, because watch this, to every test and trial you will come out victorious. But here it is. No one wants to go through nothing to get something. As he talks not only to the disciples, he's talking to us, brothers and sisters, today. That it's in the moment that you're going through the prepping stage that Paul says it best in Colossians 4. Continue in prayer and watching the same with thanksgiving. Be sure to pray to God. He will make a way for us to spread his message and explain the mysteries about Christ. even though I'm in jail for doing this. And what we need to understand is you will be arrested from time to time. And when I say arrested, you will feel like you are being held captive in your own body. You will feel like you're being captive in your own environment. And can I just be spiritually with you? You will feel captive in your own church. And the reason being is that there are people in the church that don't understand why you are willing to serve a God that will allow you to be held captive when he said he set you free. And the reason is that God has to allow you to experience some stuff so then you won't forget who it was that set you free. And I get nauseous when I come to church when people can't celebrate God for another day's morning. This morning when you rose, how many had a doubt? Nobody had a doubt. This morning when you rose, who wondered if the Lord would take care of you? Nobody should. In fact, everybody should be celebrating because I laid down last night. I was clothed in my right mind. I woke up because I had my mind stayed on Jesus. And how many know when you got your mind on Jesus, he will keep you in perfect peace? What we need to know as he preps us in the prepping page, the prepping stage, he wants you to recall some things, how you got there. And if I can just stop there and give me a snicker. Here it is. The church is theologically is set together, put together to be a church of redeemers. But when we have arrived to a level of feeling like we have redeemed ourselves, we can't celebrate with other redeemers. And so here it is. God said, I have to allow you to go through some stuff so that you can appreciate what you're going through. But if you get in the presence of those that have been through, but yet you still hold yourself captive without witnessing that I'm going through, now watch this. I have to make you out of an example of what stress looks like, what sickness looked like. Not only that, I have to make you out of an example of what discipline feels like. And I don't know if anybody here has ever felt like God has been whipping you with many stripes. It might be because you're not giving him all the glory like you should. It might be because you're not giving him the acknowledgement that you should. In fact, it just might be because your prayer life ain't as effective as you think it is. But how many know that if you pray to God, pray while it is day, pray in the noontime and in the evening, God will hold you close. God will give you a victory shout. God will give you a testimony. I'm preaching and you ain't saying nothing. He'll give you a shout that if don't nobody else want to shout, you can shout for all the haters, all the ones that's been looking in on your life, telling you wasn't going to make it, looking down on everything that you do. Because when God steps into your life, there's no secret what God can do. What he done for others, high five somebody and say, he's going to do it for you. He's that prepping stage. And here it is. He wants us to recognize two aspects. In the prepping stage, I'm dealing with your spiritual life. Is one. We've lost connection with the source, which we need to become productive with. The text says, he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. That indicates that we have lost the connection with God. How do you lose connection, Reverend? Because you don't want to change. When you're pruning, he's changing you from an old tree to a new tree. I'm trying not to get ghetto and really say it the way I feel it. But he's trying to keep us looking productive and beautiful. You know, some of us can testify that, you put on some of your best clothing, you tore up on the inside. And truth be told, some of us are tore up on the outside, but yet we put on clothes to cover up everything, but we won't tell the truth. And so he said, I'm dealing with your spiritual life. You cannot get power if you're not connected to the power source. So then now watch this. There are a lot of disconnection notices in the church because somebody ain't paying their bill. How do you pay your bill? I give God glory, I give him honor, I lift him up, I praise him, and I worship him. Why? Because I don't want God to let the rocks cry out for me. I don't want nobody to tell me how I should tell him how good he is. But last I checked, he kept everything in me. It's in him we move and have our being. That's the reason why I celebrate. Because when everybody else walked away, he stuck by my side. So now I can validate my praise because my praise has meaning. Now I can be a witness and I can draw somebody that don't understand what trouble feels like. I can look at them and say, baby, weeping may endure for a night, but if you hold on, joy is going to come in the morning. He says, your power has been cut off. You have to maintain a spiritual life. And then here it is. You have to understand, we have to remain in the Lord. You cannot move mountains in your life if you have no knowledge of faith. I think I said it before that when a church builds its hope on a budget and not put his hope in the faith of God. Watch this. I'm finna lay this in your lap. God will strip the church of every finance that it has to make some people get down on their knees. I don't know if I got some spam and bologna eaters that know you've been broken at one point in your life, that you had to get down on your knees and say, Lord, I thank you for the salami, but can you give me a little ham? Lord, I thank you for the sardines, but God, can you give me a real catfish? Lord, I thank you for bankruptcy, but God, can you just put $10 in my account? Because sometimes God got to break you down in order to build you back up. Here it is. You cannot acknowledge your power or even speak to the things that you should because you're not connected. Paul says it best, let this mind be in you which is also in Christ Jesus. It's impossible to have power if you're not connected to God. We struggle with sickness because there's no power. We can't rely on our brothers and sisters to pray sickness off of us. You cannot rely on your husband and your wife to be your spiritual relief. You have to know God for yourself. That's why he made salvation free to all those that want to come. It'll be a sad indictment if you had to rely on the preacher in order to be saved. Because truth be told, many of us preachers and pastors wouldn't want you saved. I know some of y'all don't understand that. Because here it is, just as much as you put your tongue on the preacher, if the preacher had to get the clearance for you to be saved, Lord, whip them until all the stripes change their life. Lord, I'm going to tell you the truth, whoop the hell out of them until they get it right. But God, I'm so glad that you went down and got the keys of life from the pits of hell to change the life of those that want to be changed. And guess what? God can transform anybody. You cannot position yourself, watch this, to keep a spiritual life without coming at least to church. Because the Bible says, he says, forsake not the assembly of yourselves amongst the brethren, which means you can't get too solemnistic. That's one of my words now. You cannot get too solemnistic where you think you know it all and you can't be taught nothing. I know y'all don't like that. Half y'all didn't hung up when I got to talking about hell. Yeah. And here it is. You cannot become too solemnistic that you have not, you've come to a point where you can't be taught. How in the world can you tell somebody about faith, but you laying in the bed all through service, Bible study, Sunday school, and every other type of meeting that's going on that can help you about faith? How in the world can you tell somebody Jesus is real, but yet you complain every time he needs you to pray? How in the world can you be an example for your children, but all you do is complain in the presence of your children, and then you tell them prayer changes things? Sometimes you got to get undignified for God and say, baby, I'm acting foolish because God has covered us. God has kept us. In fact, I'm going to learn some more about how he can keep me. Matter of fact, I need him to keep me from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday to Friday and even Saturday. In fact, on Sunday, I'm going to give a double dose, because when I walk into the house, many said I wasn't supposed to be here this week, but when I get in on Sunday, I'm going to shout how I made it over. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Not only is it spiritual life, but he says the second aspect of that is, I'm trying to check your worship period. Because he says, if you in me and you ain't right, I got to cut you off. But I'm trying to check your worship spirit, because your worship should be aggressive now that I'm prepping you. Did y'all just catch that? I'm prepping you now, so your worship should be more aggressive. Help me out, Reverend. I will. Your worship becomes aggressive because now you're at a state to where you feel powerless. So when you have an aggressive worship, you're telling him, everything that's in me, you can have it back. You just got selfish on me. And some of us have to understand that while you are in the prepping period, your worship should be aggressive. Why? Because while I'm in the prepping period, all eyes are on me. Many will say I failed. Many will say I don't deserve it. But God said, while in the worship period, in the prepping period, your worship becomes aggressive, because now when you give to me, I'm obligated to give back to you. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, and prove me there within that I will open up the windows of heaven and pour out you a blessing that you can't have room to receive. Sometimes you just got to give it to him when you don't got it. I'm tired, I'm stressed out, but yet I got worship on my mind. I'm fed up, I got a migraine, my back hurt, my leg hurt, but yet I got worship on my mind, because God, I know if I give it all to you, you'll give me something back. They that wait upon the Lord shall. Your worship period. Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 5, give thanks in all circumstances. For it's in God's will for you in Christ Jesus. And the text says, he cuts off every branch in me that bear no fruit. And here it is. The circumstances that's going on is what he got to cut off. In order for the church to be where it needs to be, you have to step out on the faith-based aisle and say, I want to be changed. I want to be pruned, because God, I'm tired of me. I guess I'm the only one that get tired of myself sometimes. Because sometimes I get tired of myself being humble. Sometimes I get tired of myself being nice. But I found out that if I empty out of me, God will fill me up. So then now when I'm in the prepping period, my worship becomes stronger. Now I'm coming in empty. And God will fill me up. And you want to know why church ain't popping like it should be? We got too many full cups. You got a 12-ounce, 16, 18-ounce cup is full. You got a top on it. And then you said, Father, fill my cup. But how many know sometimes it's good to come in empty? Because you know if I come in empty, I came in one way, but once I get the word, I promise you I'm not leaving out the same way. In fact, I'm coming in with pain, but I'm leaving out with praise. I came in with worry, but I'm leaving out with worship. I came in doubting, but I'm coming in demanding. I know that God will make a way. He wants wants us to empty out. Somebody shout out, empty out. Empty out. You got to empty out while he's in that pruning, prepping stage. But secondly, and I'm going to get out your way because I know some of us want to eat before we go to church, but I promise you, if I catch you sleep, I'm going to call your name out. Because if I got to stay awake, you got to stay awake. Ain't that what we do? Here it is. The second thing is that not only is the prepping stage, but it's now an inspection stage. While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes it so that it will be even more fruitful. Jesus suggests that I will inspect you to make sure there's nothing deep that can infect your productivity. See, biblically, the job of the husbandman was to take care of the vineyard. If he saw something that could hinder the tree, he would lay his hands on it and remove it. Some of us need we need his hands on us. I remember coming up as a little boy. We always get pre-warnings. Y'all remember the pre-warnings? We going to the store, don't ask me for nothing. We going out to eat, I'm gonna get you what I told you I'm gonna buy you. Don't ask for no ice cream, don't ask for no extra. And we going over so-and-so's house, and you bet not cut up over there. And when we get to church, you better not ask for no candy. And you better not get caught at the corner store during church. We had that pre-prep warning. And then here it is. Every now and again, somebody will be foolish enough to test the prepper. Y'all done hung up already. See, I know you don't want to admit to the Mississippi whippings, but here it is. Some of us know that had it not been for the prepping, we would have gotten into trouble. Here it was. Because we were prepped, we had fear. Because if at any one of them places we was to act up and show our other side, y'all looking at me like you ain't Peter. When she put her hands on you, she'll mess some stuff up in your life. I wish I had some disciplinarians that can say, I'm so glad that she put her hand on me. I'm so glad that he put his hand on me because I know I was messed up. In fact, he didn't have to get a switch with 2 leaves. He just put his hands on me. How many know when God put his hands on you, your life will change? But the good thing about it is when he put his hands on you, because he loves you, he won't let you go. That's a shout point right there. That had it not been for him putting his hands on you, you know you would have been messed up. But God, I'm thankful that you didn't let my past affect my future. You kept your hands on me. That car you driving, it didn't get wrapped around a tree. Why? Because he kept that hospital bill you got didn't take you to bankruptcy. Why? Because everything that goes on in your life, Father, put your hand on it. Because when you put your hand on it, I know things will change in my life, at my job, with my children, with my wife, with my husband, at the church, with all my friends. Because God, your hand can change things. And here it is. The text says he has to inspect us. And he has to put his hands on us. But watch this. He has to inspect us to see if there's anything deep that will eat at the believers. If the husbandman was to, if he was to check and make sure there's no deep scars, he got to dig deeper than your mask. And so here it is. Many of us can witness to the fact that we got some deep scars. And the husbandman will check to make sure there's no termites in the wood. Termites eat away at stuff. And can I just ask you a question? Do you got some people that sometimes just eat at you? I mean, they eat you up, mess with all your energy. They wear you out. They get on your last nerve. You ain't got to tell me it's your person sitting next to you, but at least testify. And said, there's some folk that just been termites in my life. When I'm doing good, you always got something negative to say. When I get mine, you get mad because you ain't got yours. When I'm happy, you always say I should be sad. Them some termites. And guess what? The church is full of all kinds of termites. There's somebody trying to steal your dream right now. Why you shout like that? Baby, you don't know what I've been through. It don't take all that. Yes, it do. Because if you knew everything I've been through this week, you'll understand why I'm saying, Lord, touch me all over. Make me over again. Because I got some stuff eating up at me. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of God. Because there's some stuff been eating me up all week. They told me I wasn't supposed to get the promotion, but yet you blessed me. I'm tired of being ate up. So God changed me. Make me over again. It's termites. And watch this. If you allow, let me get spiritual now. If you allow these spiritual termites to stay in your life, you will develop dead spots. So then now the husbandman has to inspect you to see if he can revive some dead spots. Y'all know the old saying, they say one apple can spoil a whole bunch. Well, one termite can tear down a whole house. Y'all looking at me funny. One termite can mess up the whole house. And here it is. We have to understand that we have some dead spots. Let me show you a dead spot. If when the name Jesus is mentioned, you can't get happy, that's a dead spot. If the name Jesus is mentioned and you can't get happy, that's a dead spot. If the name Jesus is mentioned and you can't get happy, that's a dead spot. If the name Jesus is mentioned and you can't get happy, that's a dead spot. If the name Jesus is mentioned and you can't get happy, that's a dead spot. If the name Jesus is mentioned and you can't get happy, don't look for nobody else, that's a dead spot. Why? Because the Bible said, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Look at somebody and say, I got a reason to shout. Because it was Jesus. Jesus. Nobody but Jesus. Something about the name of Jesus, it'll make you walk right. Something about the name of Jesus. How many know it is the sweetest name that I know? Something about the name of Jesus. He's a sustainer and life giver. And how many know when you call on the name of Jesus, he can revive you once again? Somebody shout out Jesus. Jesus. I got to leave y'all. I'm gonna leave y'all alone. So my time is up. That's all you got to do. When I think of the name of Jesus, The Bible says that the name of Jesus, every knee's gonna bow, every tongue is gonna confess. But the Bible said at the name of Jesus, the devil gonna tremble, the earth gonna melt away. You got problems, just call on. You got sickness in your body, just say. Problems in your home, say Jesus. On your job, just say Jesus. How do you spell it? J-E-S-U-S. He did it just for us. His name is Jesus. Y'all ain't even saying his name. You ain't even celebrating his name. His name is above all names. What's his name? And that's a celebratory praise. That's why he wants to prune you. So when his name is mentioned, you can lift up holy hands. You can enter to his court with praise. Enter to his gates with thanksgiving. Because when I look back over my life and think about all the things that Jesus has done, my soul makes a boast. My mouth is wide open. My hands is glorifying him. And my shout is because of Jesus. Why? Because one Friday he went on the cross. They called Calvary. They hung him high. They stretched him wide. His name is Jesus. They tell me he hung his head in the rocks and he died. What's his name? He died. Didn't he die? They tell me they took him down. He was buried before lunch. But somebody know he was in the grave before dinner. But how many know Jesus? Early Sunday morning, he got up with power in his hands. Power to walk right. Power to talk right. Power to live right. Power in heaven and earth in his hands. I'm so glad when they say Jesus, it makes me feel good. Something on the inside start working on the outside, and it brings about a change in my life. All because of Jesus. Anybody glad about Jesus? Has he done anything in your life? What's his name? Jesus. The scripture said, then if you abide in me, I in you, you can ask what you will, and it shall be given to you. Let me guess. Father, I need to know if you love me. Yes, I love you. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever will believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. What's his name? If you're alive and you're grateful for Jesus, show him how blessed you are. Tell him how good he's been. Let him know he's worthy of all the praise. Granny used to say, I love him so much, Jesus called me Andy, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. Anybody glad to be a servant of Jesus? Anybody glad to be a child of God? Do me one favor. Help me close this thing and stand to your feet and just lift up your hands and say, I'm glad to be a part of the army. I'm glad to be in Jesus' camp. I'm glad to be a child of God. I want you to do one more thing. Grab your neighbor by the hand real quick and tell him, neighbor, because of Jesus, you're holding a hand of a victory shouter. You're holding the hand of a miracle because Jesus made a way out of no way. Now rock him and shake him. Shake him and rock him. Rock him and shake him. Shake him and rock him. And tell him, be not dismayed. Whatever betide, God will. God will. God will. God will. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? He'll take care of you. Anybody know he will? Say yeah. Say yeah. Say yeah. Is there anybody here that can just say, Jesus, Jesus loves me? This I know. Why? Because the Bible tells me so. Got to leave y'all alone. Y'all gonna make me kill myself. How many know if you die in Jesus, the Lord said you will be resurrected? I'm done, Earl. I'm done. I'm done. Being pruned for service. Because he tell me if I abide in him and he abide in me, I can ask what I will. It shall be given. Somebody should have been hollering Jesus for your child. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I love him, I love him, I love him. I love him, I love him, I love him. I love him, I love him, I love him. Jesus is his name. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Worthy, worthy, he's worthy. Worthy, he's worthy, he's worthy. Worthy is worthy, he's worthy. Jesus is his name. I tried him, I tried him, I tried him. I tried him, I tried him, I tried him. I tried him, I tried him, I tried him. What's his name, y'all? Jesus is his name. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Healer, healer, healer. Healer, healer, healer. Healer, healer, healer. What's his name? Jesus is his name. Say that right there again. Jesus is his name. Jesus is his name. Say it like you mean it. Jesus is his name. Say it real loud. Make the enemy mad. Without the music, let's say it real loud. Say it like you really know who he is. If he's ever done anything for you, if you need anything in your life, you need deliverance, Jesus is his name. Jesus is his name. Real softly, we extend this invitation to you. We would love to be your family and help you